All right, did you see this yesterday? Secretary of State Marco Rubio came to J.D. Vance's defense after a CBS host criticized his speech in Munich and made this comparison to Nazi Germany.
He was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide.
Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime. The point of his speech was basically that there is an erosion in free speech and intolerance for opposing points of view within Europe, and that's of concern because that is eroding. That's not an erosion of your military capabilities. That's not an erosion of your economic standing. That's an erosion of the actual values that bind us together.
Fox News contributor Joe Concha joins me now. Joe, what did you think about this exchange?
I don't know, Carly, thanks for having me, why any member of the Trump administration would appear on any CBS News program, and especially anything hosted by a Democratic activist like Margaret Brennan. That's one of life's great mysteries. So let's get this straight. Her argument is that the Holocaust happened because of too much free speech. It was weaponized to conduct a genocide. Rubio, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who is as serious as a prison fight and as sharp as anyone out there, period, was not having it. He also asked back, why would our allies or anyone be irritated by free speech? And to his point, the genocide was committed by an authoritarian Nazi regime. I mean, who knew that Face the Nation, once moderated by actual journalists like Bob Schieffer, had morphed into The View? But that's where we're at this point. And Rubio handled it beautifully, and he's correct. And again, Margaret Brennan, who, remember, she co-moderated that vice presidential debate with J.D. Vance when she tried to fact-check Vance. Vance fact-checked her back, and then she cut off his mic. They're proving to be no different than MSNBC at this point. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, as a journalist or a host, you never want to become the story. I can't speak for her, but that may be a moment that she wished she got back as it makes its way through Twitter. I mean, it was one of the top trending topics on X yesterday. There is also this moment from ABC News. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries confronted with a reality that he might not really want to hear. Listen to this.
Donald Trump's favorability rating is actually higher than it ever was the first time around. 63% favor federal government's recognition of only two sexes. 60% favor deporting immigrants who entered the United States illegally. 60% favor expanding oil and gas production. Is there anything you are seeing that Trump is doing that you are in favor of, that you think is the right thing?
Let me say, as it relates to all of those issues, we're just at the beginning.
So he also deflected and noted that Trump vowed to lower prices for groceries on day one, which hasn't happened yet. What's your reaction to that?
The reaction is that we are exactly 28 days into this administration. And if the Democrats are going with a strategy like, well, food prices haven't come down yet. It hasn't even been a month since this president took office. And for 4 years, this is the Democrats' big problem. They didn't talk about inflation. Yeah. They told us it was transitory. They blamed Vladimir Putin, the Putin price hike. Remember that? Pushed by Jen Psaki and Joe Biden. And now saying, why hasn't prices come down yet? The problem for them right now, Carly, is that they're very accomplished at complaining, at whining, at sounding like they're on crazy pills, but they're not offering any positive alternatives, any solutions that are resonating with the American people. And until they pivot back to the middle, instead of breaking harder to the left, they're going to be lost deep in the forest, like Sherwood Forest deep, because you can't just complain and not have something where you say, this is what we would do if we were in power. They have no power right now. And most importantly, they have no real message. And that's a big problem.
Okay, so I also want to get to this with you. A controversy back in the news 12 years later. A former NFL player, Jonathan Martin, if you remember his name, has come forward saying accusations of bullying he made against his former teammate Richie Incognito, which sparked an investigation and a racial controversy that permeated through the media, were not true. Martin told ESPN, quote, "I never believed for a second I was being bullied, but my mother had her own read on the situation. It's a story that I've been trying to fix for 10 years. What's your response to that? I mean, if you remember, the media went wild over this story.
Oh, yeah. So this is the Miami Dolphins, and this was an offensive guard, a lineman, Richie Incognito, who was accused of bullying, accused of racism, and the media went with it with this whole narrative that you are guilty until you're proven innocent. This was Bullygate, and Richie Incognito's career was destroyed as a result of Martin's accusations pushed by his mother. And the fact that he didn't get a fair trial, so to speak, in the court of public opinion, Incognito doesn't get his career back now, Carly. And while Martin is apologizing, that's where we're at, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's kind of like I remember the Duke lacrosse thing, that the new revelations there. Some 10 years later, you always get the real truth. Got to leave it there, Joe. Fox and Friends starts right now.